What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 11 of Enter the Javelin, Mixer's first Anthem community web show. We gather here once a week to discuss the latest news, updates, and hot takes on BioWare's upcoming IP due out in February 2019, titled Anthem. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Lupo, and I'll be your host for the evening. So, where do I start today, guys? It's going to be an interesting few weeks up to the next set of information that we're going to get here. So I guess you could say we're in the drip feed stage now of Anthem news, because we've spoken about in previous shows. The Game Informer exclusive coverage is done. You know, that was last month's thing, so that's come and gone, and now we're basically waiting for the game shows to start, like Gamescom, which is going to be in Germany, PAX Prime in Seattle on the West Coast, US, and there's a good chance we may not see any major information until these particular events. But rest assured, we've been pleasantly surprised in the past. You know, so we got this gameplay trailer a couple weeks ago when we were kind of not expecting much. And that was a big thing. So we got that. We got a Twitch stream. So those were pretty unexpected things, but they were given to us by BioWare, and you know, we've been coasting on that for a little while, for the last couple of weeks. So needless to say, there's a little stuff to talk about this week. Not too much, so we're not gonna drag out just, you know, little bits of information. But the first thing, you know, that I want to go over is, because we already talked about the most recent gameplay, the recent gameplay trailer, demo, whatever you want to call it. We'll call it demo, that they put out, was analyzed by Digital Foundry. And now last year, Digital Foundry looked at the original gameplay reveal, just kind of looking at the overall quality level of some of the assets in the game and the gameplay, you know, because you can make a demo all that you'd like, but until people have it in their hands, they really don't know what you're going to get out of a game like this. So I think the first thing that we want to look at is what they were working with as far as specs go, because a lot of the things they talked about had to do with they were kind of scaling some things back in order to, I guess, mimic some of the like console expectations. But at EA Play, like we spoke about with Devin from Freelancer Codex a couple weeks ago, the hands-on demo was run on two GTX 1080 Ti's SLI, and they were at 4K 60 frames without a problem. So you know, it's a little interesting to see that that's what they give you on hand. But some of the demos that we're looking at on YouTube, the stuff that BioWare is putting out, is only at 30 frames. So the game is most likely going to run at 4K on console. Well, I guess premium consoles, so PS4 Pro and Xbox One X. Although the PS4 Pro is going to be checkerboard 4K. It's not going to be true 4K. And most likely locked in the 30 frames, because I just don't think that a game of this kind of caliber is going to be able to maximize the setting, or, you know, maximize the output of the game itself and push the max settings in 60 frames. So I don't think they're going to allow it to do, and they're just going to lock the consoles at 60 frames. But I do believe that PC is going to be at 60 frames, obviously. You know, Destiny and other games of the like run on 60 frames and run very well. I'll comb through this while we're here and just go over some of the things that they discussed, because I'll put I'll link the video in the video description when we archive on YouTube. But there's a lot of information that they say, and a lot of technical terms, if that's something that you're into. So we'll kind of like go into the short version, the Cliff Notes version of it. One of the biggest things is that with the vastness of the world, they still had a lot of detail in the space. Like, other games using Frostbite, like Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5, and they're specifically comparing Battlefield 5 because it's like the latest thing on Frostbite. And then obviously Battlefront 2. They're large open areas, very expansive. You can see long distances. But what Anthem has that the other games don't have is the fact that there is lush vegetation, and it's not a simulation. It's often you have pop-ins and stuff like that. There is very few instances, and they actually highlighted them. Like I've watched the trailer or the demo 4 times or 5 times, and I didn't realize it. Like these aren't something that like my eyes are trained for, but they did show that there was like certain areas to the side where you see like pop-in textures of the vegetation and stuff like that, but the 3D modeling and the 3D rendering of those particular things was something that they expressed was a very good thing to see out of a game of this kind of caliber. Usually they find ways to cut corners, and they don't know if that's necessarily something that was done in post-processing after the fact, or what that's actually going to render in the game itself. So they are hesitant but hopeful at the same time. So let's see what else there. Large distances. That's what I spoke about already. Vegetation. Those are the biggest things that they commented about with how well the engine's running right now. They did say how certain reflections in water don't show. Like that was like the one big negative that they did point out, is that if you see water, it has a very good like reflection. Like you can see the ambient world and the reflection of the waters and stuff like that. But the second that you see a live character, or so like you see a player character or a world event character or moving characters, they weren't showing reflections. Now this could be something that they're doing just particularly in this demo, that they're just trying to finish what they were doing and get something out. But either way, it's still something that they pointed out. And Silvercell is saying in the chat here, and I appreciate the host, Silvercell. Water is hard to do, and that's something that they commented about. But there were some like movement that they did comment was a little bit better than normal. But so far so good. I mean, Digital Foundry's pretty critical of how they look at other people's games. So I'll actually read the last paragraph in its entirety. So based on what we're seeing here, Anthem's impact 1 year from its initial reveal remains undiminished. And as late-gen Frostbite titles, it's great to see the technology being pushed in new directions, backed by some truly beautiful art design. Yes, it's an open world, and yes, there are strong hints of Destiny here, but the emphasis on extreme detail plus the freedom of flight and a unique focus on verticality really sets it apart. It's a remarkable technological statement to the point where it's a case now of seeing just how well the visuals we're seeing here will scale across the multiple platforms the game is set to arrive on. With Gamescom next month, which is going to be at the end of August, we really hope to spend a little more time with the game, and fingers are crossed that will go into hands-on with the console build. Obviously, Xbox One X would do nicely to set the stage for the full rollout due in February next year. So they are very confident in the fact that the game has not diminished in quality over the last year, that it's actually still on par with what they were looking at. And the game last year looks very, very good. The demo that we got last year at E3 2017 was 4K, 60 frames. So they are, they're very confident that we're going to continue to see these things. It's just we are yet to see how well it's going to perform on the actual console. Like they say that we saw the console last year, that we saw Xbox One X last year, but it is absolute certainty that we got it on PC this year. So we saw PC with controllers this year. I believe on the online demo. So if you're watching the demo on on YouTube or something like that, that's going to be in 30 frames though. So that's something that they're slightly concerned about, but nothing like overly concerned about. So it's really more so the fact that they want to make sure that it's going to run smoothly on the legacy consoles at this point. So the original Xbox, original PlayStation, they're not necessarily concerned about them running on the more advanced consoles, but that's something you got to set the standard for at this point. With all the other games, you know, like I think a game like Destiny sort of sets the tone for things like this now, because it's the heavy hitter in the genre right now. So Destiny, Warframe, Division, Borderlands are like those games that you kind of look at. Diablo, in this particular vein, that kind of set the standard for visual fidelity, and the fact that Destiny locked at 30 frames on console gives them the desire to push it a little harder, but I don't think they're going to, because you'd rather undersell and over-deliver in that particular aspect. So the next little thing that I wanted to get into, so one of the designers left BioWare, and this has been a continuous trend over the development of Anthem, that developers working for BioWare have left the studio, this, that, and the other thing, and often prompts people to have concern with the development as a whole. So let me just explain a little bit more about who's leaving, what kind of impact this has to Anthem. The designer's name is James Olin. He's been with BioWare for 22 years. He actually was the lead designer on Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and Neverwinter Nights. So just to give you a scope of scale of how long he's been with BioWare. So like the very early, but he's worked on Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Neverwinter Nights, Knights of the Old Republic, Jade Empire, Dragon Age Origins, Star Wars The Old Republic, and Mass Effect Andromeda. So, and then he did work on Anthem very recently. Now, James Olin is very into Dungeons and Dragons. So that's where his heart lies and what he really wants to do moving forward. So a game like Anthem doesn't really excite him in that way, but obviously he's an employee. He's going to do what he's asked to do, and he's a talented artist, a talented designer. He's been with BioWare for a very long time and has worked on pretty much most of their titles. Like he's in the Austin studio, which they're really more of the Old Republic at this point, and kind of lend resources when other things are needed. So Mass Effect Andromeda was a big project that saw some great undertaking late in the project because redirection, I guess you can kind of call it. So he's been working mostly on the Old Republic, did lend a hand a bit on Anthem more recently, but he's leaving BioWare to go work on his own project, which is going to be novels. It's going to be Dungeons and Dragons in the 5th edition. So I'll actually read this word for word. So this is his words. The most fun I've had at BioWare was the lead designer of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and Neverwinter Nights. I've been a Dungeons and Dragons fanatic since I was 10 years old, and I want to be a part of it again. Please visit our Arcanum Worlds to see what I'm talking about, and I'll link that in the video description on YouTube. The website describes Arcanum Worlds as a publishing venture formed by a small group of passionate veterans from the video game industry. We build epic adventures for the world's greatest role-playing game. Which game might that be is probably a topic for debate, but in case the Dungeons and Beyond header isn't enough of a hint, Olin confirmed in a separate tweet that he's working on a hardcover sourcebook for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, using Wizards of the Coast open game license. So that's what he's going to be working on, and he's working with Jesse Sky, who's another former lead designer at BioWare EA, and he worked on Star Wars: The Old Republic and Mass Effect Andromeda. So people that don't necessarily want to continue in the games industry, have more passion for the Dungeons and Dragons side of things, because that's where BioWare got their start, was creating Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Neverwinter Nights. They're revolving in the Dungeons and Dragons world in their particular lore set, and a lot of people want to get back to that, and that's completely understandable. But I don't have the direct quote, but I believe it was either Mark Dara or John Warner saying the fact that although these people, some of these employees are leaving, it's not a detriment to the project as a whole. It's like any other large scale project like this where you have, I don't want to call them contractors because that sounds too impersonal. But a lot of these people are on contract base, and once your contract is up or your work is finished, you move on. Or if your work isn't completely finished, then other people shoulder the load of these other particular tasks. So I don't think this is going to have any long-term effect on the development of Anthem. I think his role, James's role in the project, is very much complete because no one, they really haven't said anything to a larger effect. So. Obviously you had Aaron Flynn. Well, you had Casey Hudson leave super earlier in the project. He was the original game director that got moved to John Warner after he left. Aaron Flynn became general manager. He eventually left, so then Casey Hudson came back. So you have Aaron Flynn left. Drew Karpyshyn, which we actually found out more recently that Drew Karpyshyn wasn't the lead writer, but he was doing work for Old Republic in Austin. They kind of contracted him to do some more work on Anthem. So we had this idea that he kind of created the world. Maybe he had more of an impact, but they're not leading on more so than what we've already heard. So Drew Karpyshyn came left again, so that sort of thing. And then obviously you had the death of designer Corey Gasper, untimely death mid last year. So it was a couple months after the reveal of Anthem itself, and he passed in a tragic accident. So whether it be subtraction by people willingly leaving or other unfortunate events, Anthem has seen its share of attrition. And I don't have any doubts at this point. And then you had Blair Brown, who's one of the producers. He also left, and he went to Respawn. But it seemed like his work was done. The producer is a pretty wide scope role, and it seems like there's no shortage of that type of personality to be able to facilitate that type of work. So I'm sure they just moved on to another producer. And or his work was finished. Some of the things just aren't exactly clear, but he did leave to go work for Respawn in California, and he's working on the next single player Star Wars title. So best of luck to Blair on his projects and James Olin on his projects, and we'll see more on that in the future. I hope. I'm a BioWare fan. I'm an EA fan. Well, EA. Not sports games, but Titanfall was good. Titanfall 2 I enjoyed to a certain extent. Battlefront 2 is a good game if you take all the nonsense out of it at launch. So like I said, I support EA, and I don't mind a lot of their stuff. The last little bit of news that we have for this week is the one like piece de resistance for the week. I'll show the image because I have to think about what to say for a second, because I really thought like this was really cool. So as you'll see on screen here, they are going to be releasing the Art of Anthem book right around the time of release. So February 26th, they're going to be releasing the Art of Anthem book, and you can actually pre-order it right now on Amazon. It's going to be done by Dark Horse Comics, who actually did the Art of Andromeda book as well. And I think some of the visuals in that book are really, really top notch. The way they put everything together is really incredible. Mac Walters, who's creative director on or John Warner said it's a large encompassing role at the studio, that he's the game director. So I guess, or creative director. So I guess that he's doing things with the art end and larger or third party things. Not necessarily worrying about the game's development, but taking what's in the game and making it marketable to the other things and putting games, things out like the art book and stuff like that. So that's really great to see, because Art of Andromeda was awesome. But what they also say in this blog post from Dark Horse, I'll actually read it right now. From the studio behind the hit franchises Dragon Age and Mass Effect come the thrilling world of Anthem. That's how they're talking about BioWare. Dark Horse Books and BioWare are proud to announce a new publishing program that delves into the world of Anthem with an art book and comic series, which is super awesome, because the The Andromeda comic series was basically the DLC that people never got. Now, I'm not saying that it's excusable and this is a good way for video game storytelling, but they were really well done. The artwork was phenomenal and the story was great. So this is something that I'm definitely looking forward to. Arriving this February, the Art of Anthem showcases the grandeur and beauty of this dangerous new world, filled with behind-the-scenes looks at the production of the game, original concept art, and exclusive commentary from the developers and Anthem art director Derek Watts. Milk, yes, there may be some extra lore, like backstory type stuff. So this may be a way that they delve into some backstory, which is awesome, because that's what the Andromeda comics did. So Art of Anthem is a fantastic addition to any gamer fans' bookshelf. Look for more details on the Anthem comic series from writers Mac Walters and Alexander Freed and artist Eduardo Francisco coming soon. So I do believe, and I'll get into this in just a second here. I won't even touch on that yet, because I want to just finish this up. So Art of Anthem hardcover goes on sale February 26, 2019. Is available for pre-order at Amazon right now, and your local comic shop. Scary Kibbles, it's actually my son's birthday too, so you have a very happy birthday as well. So with the Art of Anthem, it's another way for them to deliver more storytelling. So you're gonna have a lot. I think you have a lot of storytelling in the game, and I think you have even more storytelling in these comics. I don't think this is gonna be the only way to deliver a story, because I think what you saw in Destiny and what you saw in Andromeda are things that people don't want to happen. People want their story in the game, and BioWare knows that. BioWare has been doing a very good job of paying attention of everything that's going on right now. The development and process of the way Destiny is going right now, the development and lack of continued support for Andromeda, I do believe those are things that they are taking a look at right now and saying we can't under-deliver on these particular aspects in Anthem. We have to give the story up front. We have to make sure that the pertinent information is in the game, whether that be in direct storytelling or a codex. Either way, I'm happy with either. And BioWare has always been good about being sure that the universe is there. So I don't think that the comics are necessarily going to be the source for older information, but definitely an additional way of storytelling. So you're gonna get things we might get things in a little bit more detail. You might be able to see more character interaction. So you might see a character move forward into the game itself from the comics, so from the past. But you might see their particular interactions. Like they did that very much so with Mass Effect in their books. Drew Karpyshyn wrote a few of the Mass Effect books, and the first Mass Effect game, you dealt with the main antagonist was Saren, and Saren was a rogue Spectre agent, and he had a great conflict with your superior, Captain Anderson. So the older Mass Effect books, or the original Mass Effect books, kind of outline that and say, this is the story beforehand. Like, so everything's in the codex and you can read all that stuff, but the books went into greater detail. It shows you exactly how the events led up to where it was, and to why you are where you are right now, and why Saren's rise to power was so important, and why there's a conflict between your superior and Saren himself, and why it just gives you that extra drive to say, my superior doesn't like this guy. This guy is bad for the galaxy and the greater good of the Galactic Alliance. So I need to step in and do something about it. And I'm all for things like that, 100%. XPS, how you doing, man? Good to see you, dude. All right, so like I said, there is something else I did want to show you, and I was actually really surprised to see this as well. Let me just get the screen up here. So BioWare is going to do a signing at San Diego Comic-Con this weekend. They only announced this yesterday. This isn't something that we all knew about. So at San Diego Comic-Con, they're going to show the 4 real life Javelin suits that they showed at E3. The devs are going to do some signings there. I think they're going to show some of the they might show some of the comics there. So this is something that I'm going to keep my eye on, because we're not going to get much more information probably for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So this little tiny event here might give us a little bit more information about what's going to go on, what we may see in the very near future. But I'm super excited. I love all the little things. Like if a game developer goes far enough to create extra stuff about a game that I'm already invested in, I want to see more. That's the biggest thing. So having them do this panel at San Diego Comic-Con gives the game a little bit more exposure, gives the comics more of a life. Like right now it's just an idea. If we see maybe a cover art or something like that, we're gonna see that and get more we'll be more invested into what they're working on moving forward. And those are definitely things that I am really excited for, because I mean, everything that I've seen with Anthem has just been absolutely phenomenal. I have few doubts about this game right now. The one thing that I have doubts about, and I was actually speaking about it with our next week's guest Antier yesterday, just the free content. Like, I don't know if I'm just conditioned at this point because of the other games in the industry just requiring a paid access to things. But it's you hear free content, you say, well, what does that entail? They say we're gonna have free story updates for the life of the game, which supposedly is a 10-year plan, but I mean, we all know how those types of things go. But I don't know. I want to see the model. I want to see the cadence of content. I want to see what we're gonna get in our box price. I'm invested. So it's not like I'm trying to justify spending money. I just want to know what this ideal of free content actually means. And I think a lot of people have that same reservation right now, that we want expectations set. We want to know what we're going to expect moving forward. As a Destiny player for the better part of the last 4 years, there were very few times where we had that kind of transparency with the developers, and it's concerning. I agree with that 100%. It's absolutely concerning that if you're gonna give this season pass or whatever like that, at least tell me when I'm gonna get content, when I'm gonna see new stuff. How much time investment am I gonna get out of this particular amount of money that I'm spending? Like if I pay $60 for content, I expect to get a couple hundred hours out of it. That may be naive to think that at this point, but in a looter shooter grind type of game, you need that time investment. You need, like, everything is about your time investment. It's, why am I playing? What am I playing for? What do I do week to week? Do I get to a point where I can't progress anymore? Because that's frustrating too. I think that was a little bit of a downside to the way Destiny 2 has been doing things, is that you get to a point every week and you say, well, I can't do anything else. Like, I've done everything that I can do. And without having a way to maximize your power number, not having the random rolls in Destiny kind of ruins the experience long term, because there's no reason to go after more stuff. So I think Diablo and Borderlands have pretty much set the standard for these particular things, and BioWare is certainly watching. I think so. I don't think enough people are making the comparison to Borderlands though, because I think Borderlands probably did the looter shooter the best out of all of them so far. I mean, Destiny was pretty engaging for the first couple years of it, but now things are different, and they know that things have to get fixed, but we're not gonna just continue to beat that horse. BioWare is paying attention. They're paying attention to people's investment into games like Monster Hunter World, Borderlands, Diablo, and they explain their loot system most akin to Diablo 3. So that'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, Milk, like, you and I have had conversations about, about the game in general, and I don't think Destiny 2 is a bad game. It's just they change it too much to make it not. They changed it enough to make it not feel like Destiny. Like, it feels like Destiny, but they changed it enough to make it not feel like Destiny at the same time. And I don't want that either. I don't want that either. I like the grind. I like being able to go in and know that every time I log in, there's something that I can obtain that is different than what I have. Whether it be stronger than what I have, or, optionally diverse than what I have. Those are the things that I want out of this game. So if I can go into Anthem, and even if the game, the gun has a slight modification on it where it fires a little faster or reloads a little faster or something like that. That's what I want to see, so that I can make the perfect thing. Like, I'm a min-maxer. That's what I do. When I play looter shooter games, I want to go in every week or every day and find things that are going to make my experience better. Like, enhance my playstyle. Give me something that's gonna do extra damage, or give me something that's gonna prime up these targets for better combos. That's what I want in the game. That's what I look forward to. I mean, Destiny, the current iteration of Destiny 2 is improving on these particular instances. They gave more they changed a lot of the exotics to make better perks, but in September, we're going to get a complete rehaul of the weapon system. And that's, if you recognize at one point and say, hey, look, like, people aren't playing anymore, that's what you got to do. And I think BioWare wants to nip that right in the bud and do it from the beginning backwards, as opposed to from the back, from the end forwards, But that's what I got for news this week, guys. Not a whole lot. We're gonna be diving into some of the Reddit stuff, and I don't want to go too far into Reddit because it's filled with a lot of posts where people just aren't paying enough attention, and I don't want to showcase the same things every week. So that's why we only have a little bit to go on. So the pertinent news that's come out this week is Digital Foundry tore down the gameplay that we saw last week. One of the designers left the company, happens, and then they announced the art book. So one thing we are waiting for, and I was trying to find a source for it and I couldn't. If I find the source, I'm gonna put it in the video comments. Supposedly we're gonna get a new Anthem blog that relates to the music of Anthem. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, Anthem has a lot to do with sound in general. So, obviously, Anthem is a song. The echoes of the Shaper relics, like echo is a word that relates to sound. There's a lot of other things that relate to sound in that aspect. So I think the score of the game and the thematic anthems, don't want to say anthem redundantly, but the thematic anthems of the game itself are going to play a large part in the immersion of the game. I'm a music theory student. Like, I studied that a lot in high school, and there are certain things that make you feel a certain way. Certain tones and certain cadences are designed to make you feel certain ways, and to see that, see how they implement that in game as well is going to be interesting as an appreciator of music or classical theory. We'll see. I mean, that's something that's got me going right now, so I'm excited. So we didn't do a poll this week because we didn't have a whole lot to go off of. So we'll jump into chat, see who's got some questions for this week, and then we'll wrap up the show and kind of showcase what we got going on next week. So while we wait for questions, if anybody has questions, we'll talk about next week's guest. So next week we're gonna have Dan Tier from Low Mana Gaming on next week. He's been doing some Anthem lore videos or potential lore videos. He's been discussing his thoughts on the development of the game and why he's excited for the game, and trying to provide optimism despite everything else that's going on, because a lot of people have a negative connotation with this game right now, and that's a bit frustrating. I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely a bit frustrating to see some of the negativity that goes on with this game, because Andromeda aside, BioWare is a prolific studio. They are a studio that's done pretty much nothing but great work, and to have something like people's reception for Andromeda really destroy that is upsetting. So I spoke to Dan Tier yesterday. We kind of had a good discussion about some of the things going on in Anthem, but he does incredible lore-based videos. That's his biggest thing. He's invested into like the lore community and stuff like that. So he's been doing actually Overwatch lore videos for the last 3 years. So if you guys are really into the lore, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that next week. Kind of get into the lore and see what we expect from Dan Tier. If you want to check out his channel, it's youtube.com/Low Mana Gaming, and we're gonna talk next week. And I'm super excited to have him on, because seeing his positivity and how he delivers content, so many people that create content for Anthem can sit there and tell you what you already know about the game, but to give an insightful opinion and very directly compare them to other things without bashing things unnecessarily, it's an art form. It really is, and I appreciate his work like that. So I'm excited to have him on. We're gonna discuss. I think lore is gonna be a huge topic next week. I think this is where we're really gonna get into and just discuss his plans for his content. I've said from the beginning on this show that this is really about the Anthem community and driving that as a focal point, regardless of platform. I've had Sly Nation on. He primarily is a YouTube content creator. Mulehorn Gaming, they stream on Mixer, but they are their own site. They're a gaming website. They're not particularly affiliated with any major outlet. So I appreciate their content. Anthem Insider, another website that is strictly Anthem based, but he started on Twitch, and he's growing to YouTube and to Mixer, but that's because of the reception of the community. And it's just these are the types of things that I want to promote as a content creator as well, and just kind of drive this community forward and build it around positivity. That's the biggest thing. Woot woot. See you, T Prime. Do you think BioWare will put new content out quickly? I hope so. It depends on the game loop. So Destiny didn't put out a lot of content in a good time frame, but if the loop is good, you don't need more content. So it really depends on how the game is seen up front, and they're gonna have to react to the way that people are playing the game. But if the loop is good and there's always new or always different stuff, diverse stuff to grind for, if you can go in and get this particular mod and it's a better quality than your last mod, and then you're maximizing your DPS or you're maximizing your defense or something like that, that's what's going to drive the game. Because they describe the loot chase very much to Diablo, and Diablo didn't have content for a long time. Reaper, from Diablo 3 release to Reaper of Souls is almost a year. And people play the crap out of it. So it really depends on the loop. I think they'll do well with content releases, because they already said there's going to be holidays. So if the game comes out in February, you're going to see something probably in the summer for some sort of solstice type of thing. How big do you think the sandbox will be, and do you think there will be more than one? In what sense? Is there going to be a PvP and PvE sandbox? No, because there's no PvP. But they say the loot table is gonna be pretty diverse. If that's what you talk about, like if we're talking about like the loot table in general, the loot table is gonna be pretty diverse. Areas to explore, yeah, it's massive. The game is absolutely massive. So, take Destiny's like one main area, and times that by 10. So that's just the flat area of it. Now add stories up and stories down, and that's how big the game is. So not only is it 10 times the size, like just ground area level, bigger than Destiny or Division, but the verticality adds to it as well. So they haven't really described how high or how low you go, but there's tons of depth to the game and tons of verticality to the game. So it's massive, it's immense. So it's not about like a flat level playing field, how much space you have on a flat level. It's about the volume of area you have to explore. It's gonna be like little nooks and crannies and tunnels and caves and stuff like that. So I'm excited. They're really excited when they talk about it. So I mean, that gives you even more confidence in what they're putting out as well. Take a couple more questions and we'll call it a night today. Like I said, like, not having a whole lot of news is gonna, make people start chomping at the bit pretty soon. And I understand. We went a whole year without news, and then we got weekly updates for the first month after that. So like, E3 was literally a year after the first time we saw anything with Anthem, and then every week after that we got something new. Every week after for a month we got new stuff, and now it's like it's all gone. So basically, like we're all junkies now, waiting for our next fix, which is fine. I mean, that's the way we should be. Do you think they could bring in more Javelin types DLC? Yes. I think it's all but confirmed at this point, and they don't really want to talk about it yet. So when they say, if you ask them, say, if you say, are there going to be more Javelins? They specifically answer the question with their but confirms. Yeah, they specifically answer the question with there's only 4 at launch. So that definitely infers the fact that there will be more after that. I think it's really going to come down to say, all right, these are the 4 that we have right now. This is how we want the game to balance right now. How do we add something in without lessening the experience with another one? So how do you? So you have the 4. So you have the all-arounder. You have the mage, the glass cannon. You have the tank, and then you have the rogue. So then you have a nice little four-piece set of characters. How do you throw something else in there without destroying the balance that they already have? So I think that's what they're worried about. How long is it going to be before we get something? I don't know. Is it going to cost anything to get something? I don't know. And I think that might be the way that they end up making money after the fact. Monetization, post-launch monetization is what games live off of at this point, and I'm all for it. So if you give the option to buy a new Javelin and it's not necessarily something that you have to buy, I'm a little bit more inclined to buy it, just because I want to have everything in the game. But if people don't want to buy into it and they're happy with what they have, they can exist. And I think that's the biggest thing too, because not everybody knows about all the MMOs, because there's a lot of them. But a lot of times at MMOs they put new classes into the game and they completely break the balance. A game specifically that I played for a little while was Skyforge, and when they introduced the Revenant, which is well before I started playing, because the game was out, because I was only playing on Xbox at the time. They put out the Revenant after the fact, and it pretty much destroyed the balance. Basically, anytime you did a raid or end game content, you needed to have a Revenant in your party. So I think those are the types of things. Like I'm using this one specific example because I know that one specific example. I can speak to it. How much story are they gonna have lengthwise? Well, that depends. Like that depends on story. Like, do you mean like a campaign? I'd suggest the campaign is going to be somewhere between 15 and 20 hours. The campaign is a stepping stone to the real content, which is endgame. And I think in a looter shooter, that's all it should be. Yeah, well, yeah. But like we say 15, 20 now. If like the first time I played Destiny, it was 15, 20 hours. The second and third time I played Destiny, it was 8. You know, so that's something to take into consideration as well. But they haven't put an actual time limit on it. They have simply said, you know, it's long enough. So, I mean, if you're going to give me that expectation, you can either say like, all right, it's going to suck, or you can say it with the optimistic approach and say that it's probably going to be about 15 to 20 hours. So in a looter shooter, it's basically a tutorial. It's a tutorial saying like, now you're in the end game. You've done every basic thing up until now, and now you go out into the world and you craft the better stuff. Now, if you're going to say story in general, I think there's going to be story updates constantly. Like, there's going to be side quests that have a lot of story, and there's going to be, time-gated missions that are going to have story. I think they're going to add a lot of stuff like that into the game, because they want the game to be very much alive, so that when you have, they want it to be to the point where stuff is going on in the world. It's a live event. It's going to last the entire weekend. It's so impactful to the game and to the world that if you're playing and your friends aren't, you're going to want to call them and say, hey, look, like, this is going on. We can get this good stuff. Let's go in this weekend and get something done. You know, so that's the kind of impact they want to have. And I'm sure something with that large of impact is going to have a story involved as well. So whether it be something small and say like, okay, so this particular, you know, merchant in Fort Tarsus sent out some guys and they got trapped in a an ice storm or something like that. I don't know. I'm spitballing here, but I think those are the larger type impacts that they're going to have, and it's going to be integral to the progression of the franchise as a whole. Every event's going to matter. I think everything they do is going to matter, and that's super important. I think that's why the game has taken so long to develop. I don't think it's been redeveloped multiple times. I think they locked down a general concept and have, from that point, built on it and slowly are building better scenarios about it. Which I like, man. I really like the fact that they've put enough time into this. You know, they're not trying to rush out a half-assed product. You know, a lot of people think that like, you pre-order the game, they get your money, and then they're gonna just put out crap, and that's bogus. That's complete, utter nonsense at this point. They've taken, by the time the game launches, it'll be 7 years in development, or I guess 8 years from initial inception, because the ideas were starting to form in 2011. And then they actually started like larger development on the game in 2012. You know, and progressed from there. So I think over the last 6 to 7 years, they've been working hard on solidifying what you can put in the game, how the game's going to go, and what we can expect from how the game will react in the future. The other concern that I have is what endgame is going to be. So, like, are we just going to, like, so a stronghold, like, so the one thing they've announced is a stronghold. And now is a stronghold going to be a strike or a dungeon type of thing, which is kind of what they're leading us on to be. But then they say that there's other types of endgame content, which we haven't seen yet. So, is it raid-like? Is it going to be like a greater rift in Diablo or something like that? So, I think they have a lot of options out there, and I think they're still tweaking everything. I think if they were to take everything they have and release the game today, it's gonna be pretty different from what we're gonna see in February when the game actually launches. Like, there's gonna be more stuff. I don't think they're gonna cut stuff out. I don't think they're gonna do anything like that. I think they're just gonna constantly improve on the iterations of what they have right now, and then give us a very good game in February. And then obviously, like, the next biggest question that a lot of people are asking is when are we going to get the demo? Because apparently they're going to release the demo. So if you've pre-ordered the game or you have access to the pre-orders, the digital pre-orders, you're gonna have access to the demo, and they might release that early. Like, we might see that before the end of the summer. I doubt it, but it's certainly a possibility. Anything's a possibility at this point. And I'd be really excited to get my hands on this earlier than expected. But I think that's what we're gonna call it, guys. I think we've had a good discussion today about the stuff that's going on right now. This the potential future of the game in regards to the content's depth and the world building and stuff like that. And we gotta see what's gonna come up this week. So San Diego Comic-Con is this weekend, and that's the next time we're probably gonna hear like a tiny little smidgen of some information. So if there's a live panel, I will be sure to watch it, and I'll have all that information here next week. Like I said earlier, we're gonna have Dan Tier from Low Mana Gaming here next week. YouTube.com/LowManaGaming. Very well-educated, well-spoken person, and I appreciate his input towards the game itself. As for me, you can find me at Mixer.com/Lupo to the Rescue, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all the same URLs. And we will be back next week, Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right on the same channel, Mixer.com/Lupo to the Rescue. And I appreciate everyone hanging out this week, and it's been super awesome as usual, guys. And I will talk to you all then.